Right, a little bit about the agenda for today. We'll just all quickly introduce ourselves, and then we'll dive into our topic on an MBA focused on sustainable strategies. And then our program director will share a little bit about the MBA, and then we get to our favorite part, the Q&A. So with that, I'm Ginny Hinderscheit. I'm the head of marketing for the MBA and the DBA at Grenoble École de Management.
Great, and I'd like to welcome everybody. I am the MBA Program Director. I'm Chandra Delpont, and I'm also an alumni of the program itself.
And then a big hello also from my side. I'm Leah Stadler. I'm Associate Professor at GEM since 2016. So since 2016, here surrounded by the French Alps.
All right, and with that, we'll dive into our topic, and I'll hand it over to Leah.
So what's in for you today? I wanted to give you a little appetizer of our strategy and sustainability teaching at GEM. And as a warm-up, I have a question for you. So for that, I invite you to scan the code or go directly to the book website and type in the event code LOMSSG. And then it's very short. I have only one question for you, so that we start thinking about, what is strategy? Is strategy about being the best in the industry? Is it about closely scrutinizing and copying your competitor? Or is it about creating value? So there could be one answer right, two answers right, three answers right. So that's up to you. So I give you a little bit of time. Okay, so this is actually the structure that will guide my little appetizer. And we will start with, is strategy about being the best in the industry? I think that's a very nice idea, but the problem is that as a manager in a company, you only have limited resources. So you have limited capital, manpower, materials, and so on. You also have limited managerial attention, so you cannot do everything. And also at some point, there are trade-offs. So whether you're focusing on quality or whether you're focusing on pushing down the cost at whatever price. So strategy is about making decisions, and it's a question of not only deciding what you do, but also what you not do. Because in reality, you can't be the best on all criteria. But the question is also, do you really have to be the best in the industry? So what really matters is, what do your customers care about? So strategy is, first of all, knowing whom are you targeting, who are your clients, and what do they care about? So it's excellent actually in the criteria that they judge as being important. And here, so the essence of strategy is making choices, making decisions about what you do. And the tricky part is what you don't do, because you can't do everything, you have limited resources. So it's really focusing on who are my customers and what do they care about. So as a disclaimer, being the best in the industry, if you ask your customers, you of course want the answer to be, yes, you are the best. But it is according to their expectations and according to their criteria. Okay, so strategy is about making choices in line with knowing who your customers are. So that brings us to the second question. So is strategy about scrutinizing and copying your competitor? We all have probably the assumption or the image in mind that strategy is about, following your competitor, fierce competition, and so on. The problem is that if we're only scrutinizing and copying what our competitors are doing, where they are different, they are always one step ahead. So if we start replicating what they do, while we are doing that, they are already innovating, improving what they do. So they are always one step ahead. So in this way, we can't get better than them. And also, we are then aligning our profile to that of our competitor so that the customers cannot really distinguish between the two of us. So that would actually put us in a very disadvantageous position. So the essence of strategy is rather to think about a unique value proposition. Yeah, so developing and maintaining something that makes you distinct from your competitor. And that, so the ideas for what that is and where that is, you don't get it from your competitor. You get it from really outside by interacting with the various stakeholders in your ecosystem, in your environment. So in reality, strategy is really about thinking about what makes you different, and different in the areas that really matter to your customers. So we're linking it back to the left side of the slide. So here as well, a disclaimer, yes, benchmarking with your competitor, looking at what your competitor does is still important. And you can still copy and learn from your competitor in areas where you don't need to and you don't want to be distinct. So what we call threshold capabilities. So whatever latest standards when it comes to accounting, when it comes to efficiency management, something like that. Okay, so here we have strategy is about developing and maintaining a unique value proposition. And that comes then to the third angle of the questions that I posed by VooClap, the concept of value creation. So if you think about strategy, it is really about identifying and harnessing the sweet spot that you see at the intersection of customer needs that are currently not served by our competitors' offering, and that we as a company are able to harness and to deliver based or to serve based on our unique capabilities. So it's a sweet spot where we are creating value mostly for the customer. But then the issue of value creation, this needs to translate into value for the company. And what does that mean? So here we are back to actually the numbers and the accounting. You're creating value by having revenues through the sales of your products. You still have cost of producing them, so remove that. And here is the value add that you're generating for your company. So that is the company value concept that you can increase either by increasing your sales or by reducing your cost. So we have seen here that value creation, first of all, is for a customer, really as the premise and the precondition to have revenues and to sustain your strategic position and your operations. It's also creating value for shareholders because you want to access capital. But you cannot do it on the expense of your employees. So if we are looking more a bit from moving from value creation to potential value destruction, if you're creating the value for your customers and for your company by exploiting your employees, you will actually end up by losing your employees or having employees that are resisting, that are not working well. Same for suppliers. If the value generation, you're doing that in a way that you are really exploiting your suppliers, they may start cheating on you, or they may just start, not continuing the contracts with you. Also, if you're doing your value creation at the expense of natural resources by really overexploiting your ecosystem, and then with creating harm to communities, the communities may actually retaliate, organize manifestations, and nowadays with social media, that's even more possible, but which then backfires on your reputation, which backfires on your ability to generate revenues among your key customers. So this value creation concept is also closely interrelated with co-creation of value for the different stakeholders. And here we come to the links between strategy and sustainability. So sustainability is mostly the interdependence of looking at managerial decision-making from an economic, social, and ecological perspective. So the good thing is that sometimes there are synergies, meaning that if we are able, for instance, to address societal challenges, we are relieving some threats, and we can also generate some market and growth opportunities. So how does that work? Looking at the threats, for instance, I've copy pasted here the World Economic Forum, a global risk report, where they are surveying business leaders about, what keeps them awake at night. And you see that from a 10-year perspective, you have here 4 major ecological problems that keep them awake and 1 social problem. And these actually put a risk to companies and potential costs. So by addressing these challenges, we can reduce the risk and the cost. In this way, increase actually the value for a company. On the other hand, so where we have here a McKinsey survey showing that managers also are seeing the opportunities related to sustainability in economic terms. And so this is the first main perspective, how we can link strategy and sustainability, where we can harness win-win, like synergistic relationships, what is also called the business case of sustainability. So for instance, by addressing societal challenges, we can reduce the risk. By engaging in sustainability, we can reduce the risk, for instance, of boycotting by customers, of actually campaigns by NGOs that then backfire on our reputation. But we can also actually generate market share by focusing on sustainability market segments, which are growing because customers are asking for sustainable brands and products or services. It could have, by engaging in sustainability, we can have positive employee impacts. So the more and more employees care about who is their employer in terms of the values represented and the activities that the employer is doing. So in that sense, it could give you actually a benefit in recruitment, thinking about actually a labor shortage, especially of skilled and high potentials, and also to retain them. The good thing is also that when we are looking at the ecological challenges, there are some efficiency gains that you can harness when you are reducing energy, water, materials, waste, and so on, because that lowers also your operational costs. And this way you can then increase your economic value by reducing the cost. Also, if you are engaging in supplier relationships and supplier retention, if you're addressing social or environmental issues in the supply chain, for instance, helping your supplier address or lower its carbon footprint, or to improve working conditions in the supply chain. So this can help improve your relationship or strengthen your relationship, and also help supplier loyalty. So these are very nice then win-win constellations that harness the link between strategy and sustainability in a synergistic way. But we all know that reality is not as simple because we have not yet solved the problems of sustainability. So reality is that there are also trade-offs, and operating from a sustainable strategic management perspective is being aware of the trade-offs, because we have limited Earth resources, and a company that is growing uses these resources. Another trade-off that is very difficult to capture and to address are what we call externalities. So what do you do if your competitor is externalizing their costs by not paying the full price, by, for instance, dumping the waste instead of really following legal requirements? So it's actually the ecological environment that has to bear the cost. Or your competitor is externalizing the cost to the supply chain, so that it's actually the workers in the supply chain, or again, the ecological environment that has to shoulder these costs. So this would be then considered as kind of unfair competition, but what can you do? Luckily, we are seeing government actually increasing in Europe, especially, so regulations to stop these externalities. But to be honest, they are still all around the world. So strategic decision-making is also about acknowledging the trade-offs between economic, social, and environmental perspectives, and to make decisions accordingly. So if you really want to act sustainably and going beyond these win-win situations, so if you look at different stages of companies becoming more sustainable, at some point, it's really a choice And if you then want to prioritize social and ecological decisions or choices, it's a question of interacting, communicating with your customers, with your shareholders on why you are making these choices so that they understand why your products are, for instance, a bit more expensive, or why the dividend is a bit lower, but you're actually investing from a long-term perspective. Okay, so what I would like to share here as a last point, linking sustainability and strategy, is a framework that you can use at whatever your stage you are in linking sustainability and strategy. So it's the inside out, outside in framework. So whenever you're making a strategic decision, this framework actually encourages you to, first of all, think outside in. So we have the different stakeholders outside of the organization, and how are they influencing actually my strategic decision? So is there maybe some threat coming from communities, from the ecosystem in terms of scarce resources, from suppliers of boycotting, or customers boycotting, and so on? So outside in, influencing my decision, but also inside out. So what are the environmental, social, and ethical implications of my strategic decisions, so that I can actually anticipate that and then decide how I'm going to weigh these different perspectives. Okay, my final point, and then I will hand it over to Chandra and Jeannie. What does it mean for us teaching management at GEM? So as you have probably heard, our focus is really on management, technology, and innovation, and linking that to sustainability. How does that work? So we have, first of all, SMTI, and we have MTIS. What does that mean? So at GEM, we're discussing management tools, frameworks, concepts for, first of all, if we want to move towards sustainable management, technology, and innovation, we have to ask the question, what are the social, environmental, and ethical implications of using these management frameworks, concepts, or tools? And especially what are the implications of the managerial decisions that they suggest? So in that sense, we can make sure that the tools and frameworks that we are using, at least we are aware of their implications, and then can anticipate and adapt. At the same time, management, technology, and innovation can also be a tool to address sustainability issues, to address more deep-rooted societal challenges. So then it's also a question, how can we use management, technology, and innovation frameworks or tools to address societal challenges? So it's actually working on both. On the one hand, reducing at best the societal cost of operating, and on the other hand, using really where management is strong at, especially in companies, in order to address societal issues. So that was kind of an appetizer into teaching strategy or learning about strategy at GEM in the MBA program. So I think you now you got exposed to what strategy is. What makes it difficult? It's about prioritizing, it's about finding your unique value proposition, and then also some axes and leverage points in terms of how to do that in a sustainable way.
So Leah is an associate professor here at GEM, and she's been working here for almost 8 years, and she's been leading the strategy course for the MBA for a while now. And what we've done with the program is, and I think that it's very important, is that we have made sure to weave in the concepts of not just sustainability, as you would think, eco-conscious and so on, but we're also thinking about how to build a more responsible strategy, and that's really what it's about. And so we've integrated, strategy and sustainability into a strategy course called Transforming Sustainable Business Strategies, not just about, making things more green and more eco-responsible, but really thinking about more long-term strategy. How can we leverage the constraints that we're thinking about, because we think of them as constraints oftentimes. When we're thinking about how do we include people in with diversity, or how do we increase recycling, all these different things, and we think about them as constraints, and we're trying to think about how do we think long term, and how do we use all these other things, as Leah was saying, as leverage to rethink how we can work in a better way, and in fact that can bring us a different benefit. And so Leah's class is wonderful, and we have about 45 hours total in this class with Thibaut Dodigeau, who works on the sustainability aspect, and we work with Rossignol, and we do some really interesting things within that course. If you're to join us here in September. And I just want to thank Leah, because not only is she a great strategy teacher, but she's absolutely passionate about the whole transformation process and sustainability. And she is one of the key drivers also within the school to get the other teachers on board, because we're all in transition, right? I mean, every company's in transition, but the school itself is also in transition. And we also do internal trainings and onboardings to move different ideas forward, to make sure that sustainability is integrated into basically all of our courses. We could say it that way. So, so thank you so much, Leah, for bringing a little bit of insight. Yes,
and I think we'll definitely
do.
have some questions. I think you gave everybody here some food for thought in our own,
absolutely,
in our own jobs, in our own workplaces, and we could all relate to a lot of the tips that you provided. Chandra, let's just do a quick recap of some of the highlights of the MBA. And while we'll do this, we encourage everyone to just enter your questions in the chat, and we'll get to the Q&A. I'm also happy to let you just raise your hand and speak your question as well, and we can have a lively discussion here. So to recap, yeah.
Okay, so before we get maybe into deeper discussion about what Leah was saying, kind of rebound off that discussion, because I know it's something that really creates a lot of passion and discussion. We can just say that the MBA at GEM is about transformations, transitions, and that could be in a variety of different ways. As we were saying, of course, we're talking about sustainability, but we're also talking about inclusion, we're talking about diversity, we're talking about collaboration. So it's transformations in the way that we work, transformations in the way that we do business, and internal transformations, the way that we think about ourselves and how we interact with our colleagues, even with ourselves when we're talking about mindfulness and so on. So the program is a program, the school has been around for 40 years, and the program itself, the MBA, has been around for 20, and it's a top-ranked program. We've been triple accredited now for like 25 years, or we're going to be for 25 years based on the last recent triple accreditations. We're a top-ranked school. We're in the top 100 for financial plans for the MBA and the top 50 for the EMBA. And it's a very intensive course of 10 months here in Grenoble, which we're surrounded by the mountains, but we're actually a very flat city, so we're very bicycle friendly. And we are definitely the green capital of Europe, actually, which is why this all makes sense and why we're trying to integrate the values of the ecosystem that we're living in with what we're training on. So it's really that green ecosystem. We're surrounded by beautiful green mountains, a river, etc. And at the same time, we have the dichotomy of the digital and the micro electronics that are being produced here. And we have Vercor, which is the battery producer that's creating electric vehicle batteries, and they're going to be creating a huge site in Dunkirk, for example. So it's this interesting coming together of the green thought process and the digital transformation process. So it's quite a unique place and a unique experience and a unique program for that. So it's a 10-month intensive program. And after that, 10 months of these type of courses, which are very much interactive. So you can see in the image, some of the students are kind of listening and taking notes, but then we ask them to then go off and break off into their groups and work on things and to come back and do a lot of experiential training where they're going to go out, research something, and then present it and work together or work with that company, etc. This is actually working with the Becton Dickinson Life Business Case launch. So, which is a capstone project that we run at the end of the year for over 2 months, and they'll be presenting on Friday actually in this group. But it's a program, 10 months, and then you have time to do your professional experience anywhere in the world, your thesis anywhere in the world. And that's what's important, is that you can come in, really do an intensive period of study, and then be able to put it in place right afterwards. So I think that's a quick recap.
All right, well, with that, I'm going to unshare the slides and we will open this up to Q&A. You know, this might be a nice chance while people can think of their questions, and I'll allow them to unmute their mics and raise their hands. Maybe, Leah, you can maybe talk to us a little bit about GEM being our a société à mission, which means it's written into our statutes that
yeah, it's French. What does it
sustainability is
mean?
our core. What does this mean?
Société à mission.
Yeah, so you could probably translate it as a purpose-driven organization. So that means that by our teaching, by our research, but also by our interaction with community, we want to contribute to mastering the societal challenges that we are all facing and helping organizations master the transformations that they have to go through. And so I think what is interesting is that in this mission, there is not just the teaching that we've been talking about now for 30 minutes, but there's also the research. And Chandra, when you were talking about the digital transformation and the green transformation, so I just wanted to highlight that we are having really good scholars doing research at GEM. So a colleague of mine, Lorraine Bernie, she just got into a project with University of Manchester where they hired a postdoc to work on twin transitions. And where is the trade-off? Where are the synergies? I think that's also a very strong at GEM, so that we can actually build the bridges between teaching, research, and community interaction, as Chandra said, with our ecosystem. Really trying to help organizations master transformations, and then you as our future MBAs, so the managers of these organizations.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't, when you're talking about twins, also, for example, if you've seen people virtual glasses, and they could be working on, for example, pulling up files or working on models that don't actually exist, or they may be real here, but they can play with them technically remotely. I mean, there's really a lot of things that we do at GEM, and we are big fans of the potential of digitalization and AI. We're not scared of AI per se, but we're interested in where it can bring us. But we're also trying to study, where when we talk about limits, obviously that's and the trade-off, as you said, Leah, it's really important. Obviously, it's an energy-vor sector. And so, we want to put the question to the people that we're training, that you're really the leaders of the future and the managers and leaders of the future. And it's important to at least put it out there for discussion, to add it to your thought process, to add it to your strategy. And this is really what it's about. We can't tell you exactly what to do in the future, but we're going to give you food for thought. You're going to discuss it. It's a place for discussion. So that's what's interesting about the MBA.
And it's also, I think, where these transformations really call for interacting with the different stakeholders that I've been mentioning. So, and in this MBA program, you're really equipped to do the collaboration, to really seek feedback and bring that into your decision-making processes without ending up in paralysis, which is also then a big risk the more complex you get. But there are tools in order to master the complexity of the decision-making process.
That's true. And actually, that reminds me, because we have 3 scholarships at GEM. One is the UNESCO Culture for Economic Peace, which is all about, economic peace. So we're going to talk about the way that we interact and the way that we can do it in a positive way. We can do business in a positive way, meaning that we don't just have to be there for the short term, but more for the long term. We're there for common goals. We can create things rather than destroy things and so on. We also have another one, Women and Economic Renewal, which is really about supporting women in STEM, women entrepreneurs, to move things forward where they may be disadvantaged, especially in disadvantaged backgrounds or locations. And the one that we have not given this year, because the other two we actually have given, we haven't spoken about it yet, and we will be communicating about it, but we do have one left, which is our Inclusive Sustainability Scholarship, which is a 50% scholarship based around just what you were talking about, Leah, is this idea of how do we create a collaboration and kind of a territorial networking and ecosystem that helps each other. So we have the companies, we have government, and we have schools. And how can we collaborate? How can we change the way that we interact with each other? So focus on transformations for good, really. So I just wanted to mention that because you reminded me of it. Thanks. That's great. So yeah, lots of food for thought. But yeah, we try and weave these ideas throughout. But you know, obviously this is an MBA, and we are talking about, you know, how we run a business, understanding the different sectors of a company and how they work together, and how we can leverage and support each of the different departments towards a common goal. You know, kind of the servant leader role of leadership, which I think is personally, I believe, is very important. Is enabling your company, enabling your teams, enabling the people you work around to help you, you know, help me to help you, to help me to help you, if anyone saw Jerry Maguire. But anyway, so
this also requires speaking the different languages, right? So that it is about creating the networks within organizations. It's about creating the networks with stakeholders outside of the organization. That requires speaking different languages, listening, and then
all
also
about
guiding.
Yeah, and really this is what they're talking about these days. Companies want people who are not just resilient, meaning you can roll with the punches and you can change and you can adapt. And this is what this program is about, is transitions. You know, everybody's in transition right now, and everyone has to rethink their strategy. They have to rethink the way that they do and work with other people. So I think that this idea of empathy is also one of the other things that people are asking about. We want you to be able to speak other people's language, to put yourself in their shoes and to understand what their needs are, which, as you were talking about centricity of the client, of the customer, how can we create a better product? Well, we have to think like the customer. We have to, well, of course, we have to ask them, but the other thing we have to do is we have to put ourselves in their roles and say, what are their pain points? If you want to make a strategy, the first thing you have to understand is the problem, yeah, because you're trying to solve a problem. And then how do you want to solve that problem? So what is your goal, and how would you really want to go about doing that? And doing that kind of we were talking about the culture for economic peace, but doing it in this kind of, with this thought process in mind. Why not? Why do we have to just think, you know, $ at the bottom? We could actually have the $ because we did it in the right way. And so I think this is, this is an important focus and important direction that I personally, as a director of the MBA, would like to take it. And I know that thankfully I have wonderful people like Leah who support this idea. And, you know, the director of the, you know, UNESCO Chair for Culture for Economic Peace, which is a very long name, sorry. But, you know, we're all kind of working in synergy and working in the same direction. And this is what's important, is understanding what it takes these days to be a good leader, is opening your mind, opening your mindset, and coming into the MBA with more questions than answers, I would say. You know, coming in, being interested in other people, interested in listening. As you said, listening is key. Being empathetic and being open to new ideas, and maybe something that might shake you up, that you weren't expecting to think about this way. And that now you come out of a class thinking, wow, okay, you know what? And I'm going to change things.
I must say, so based on my experience in the MBA, I'm learning nearly every day, engaging with the different cohorts because of this huge cultural diversity. It's so interesting then to hear, how is it actually working in India? So how could the competitive advantage look like in Bangladesh or in Lebanon or in Poland? Or so it's really a huge cultural diversity with different backgrounds, different ideas. So when it's generally said about opening up and engaging with others, already by engaging with your peers, that it's really rich source of inspiration and potential innovation for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why it's important also to have the multicultural, professorial background, and people, not just professors, of course, because we have external speakers, we have companies, you have touch points that are very different, but even within the people who come and facilitate almost the education, because it's an educational process where we're not just giving you the information, but we're facilitating your learning. The diversity there, the international diversity is quite amazing. So we don't have too many of one. You would assume that we're in France, so of course we have lots of French teachers, but actually we don't. We have international teachers, like we've got Australian, we've got Chinese, we've got Lebanese, we've got Leah.
German.
Unmute.
And two Americans on this as well, right? So.
Austrian. I mean, even Brazilian. I mean, literally, it's like one from everywhere, and we're just kind of lucky in that way. And as well, of course, with the cohort, the same thing. Very international group, which is very nice.
So that brings us to another point as people come to do, the second part of coming to do your MBA in Grenoble, that it's full-time and you really get this international experience, because Grenoble is also the second most English-speaking city in France. So don't worry, you still have lots of opportunities to learn French, but you'll feel comfortable and at home, like the three of us have coming to Grenoble many years ago. It's a great city to enjoy in the weekends, explore the mountains.
Well, according to Bloomberg, it's the best. It's the #1 city in the world. Did you see that?
That is true. That was a recent publication, so we enjoyed that. Yeah, #1 city for quality of life, I think. So
quality of life, yeah, which was interesting. No, but I think just you yeah. Go ahead.
Just to say that, I mean, I come originally from Hamburg, where you would travel 45 minutes from one point to another easily. And that's the beauty of Grenoble as well. Everything is easy. I mean, you can take your bike and then it's maximum 20 minutes by bike. And then also it means that you can run over lunchtime on the mountain called Bastille. So you're also very close to nature in order to re-energize and to clear up your minds. So I think it's in times simplicity that would allow you to really focus on your studies and also to relax from time to time.
Yeah, and I think that the difference between online and face-to-face, I think I would never do an MBA online. Personally, I don't believe in online MBAs unless, I mean, you've just got to come in, do your thing, and then get out, but you don't really care about the actual experience, because so much of the learning happens, at lunchtime, or it happens on just random discussions, or it happens on your study trip, or it happens, after class with your teacher, that you don't have that opportunity. And I think that I just spent, I think, and we had all the students up in the Bastille. You can see the mountains kind of behind Jenny. We were up in one of those hills, having our farewell drink, and, just taking photos, laughing, and kind of reminiscing about the year. And, one of the guys fell in the river. We're talking about, the unforgettable moments that you have, that will just last a lifetime, because a lot of that doesn't happen, when you're online. It happens here. It's just like in any company, if you're going to be working on site, and I do believe in blended, there's so much that randomly pops up in that serendipitous moment around the water cooler, or just because you happen to cross somebody in the hallway, because you mix with not just your classmates, but the French class, for example, we decided to mix with a whole nother class. So you'd be meeting different people. And if you didn't, come, then you wouldn't have opened up that opportunity. So I don't know, this is just Grenoble's an amazing place to be, honestly. So, and I'm sorry, I know that we had opened it up to questions, but so far I haven't really seen
we have a lot of people on this call, so maybe they're feeling shy. But if anyone wants to jump on, they're welcome to turn off their mics or raise their hands. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, or even ask, how do you feel about, sustainable strategy? How do you believe that that's possible for the company that you're working in right now? That's a question. Do you feel it's possible in the country that you're living in right now? Do you think it's
Actually, Chandra, maybe
easier?
this is, you brought up, sorry, made me think of something else
Yeah.
that I think people would be interested in, is
While
talking a
Jenny's
little bit
talking, you can
about,
put in questions.
oh, see it? Yeah. So please go ahead. I'll think of something they might have wanted to ask you. Maybe talk just a little bit about the live business cases, because I think this is a chance for students while they're studying to be able to apply to work in these consultancy projects. Maybe you can talk just briefly about how they can start to really work with these leading companies on these topics.
Yeah, well, I think it's when you're learning all of these different things, you kind of want to apply them right away and you want to see how they might work. What's nice is that when we have guest speakers to talk about their own personal experience and pain points that they've had and how they've worked through like best practices kind of sharing, it's one thing. But then after being in these classes, including strategy, operations, accounting, marketing, etc., you first do a first step, which is kind of a dry run, an easy version, which is the simulation. So you're able to be put in a situation where it asks you to make managerial decisions, how much do we produce, where do we source from, and you have kind of real life constraints or information. Oh, by the way, there's news. There's been a fire in the warehouse where you were trying to source from. Now you only have 3 different suppliers. What do you want to do? So we have simulations to challenge you, and you work with groups and you discuss your decisions and what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, how you should do things, and so on. So this is kind of the first step in play practice, shall we say, with these ideas, applying these theories and what you've seen into a real case. And then you go through some of the other classes, and you could have a teacher who says, okay, I'm going to bring in a speaker from a local company or a small company or that I know internationally, and he has this situation. So I'm going to let you work on creating the solution, finding the solution, because maybe it's in, innovation, or it's in marketing, or it's in operations, for example. And you work together on a little live business case within the classroom, and then you present to this company. And then we have the final case. Like I say, it's at the end of the year, and it's usually over about 2 months. So it gives you time to learn about the problem, do the research, have some touch points along the way, and then present and do a final pitch. Like I say, they're going to be doing that on, that's tomorrow, Friday, with Becton Dickinson. They have one issue that was a digital transformation. I can't really talk about the details of it, of course. And then the other one was more a market share issue, where they have a product and they're trying to understand what would be the best methodology as far as introduction to the market, because the constraints of the specific country, etc. So super interesting. And we work with them for 2 months. But before that, of course, we have seen all of the other subjects. And over that 2 months, we may be adding just a few other factors to think about, like what about sustainability? What about managing HR issues like diversity, inclusion, or collaborative, etc. So you're kind of adding these little other points. By the way, what if you add this? What if you add this? And at the end, you have your capstone project that you present and you're graded on. So this is part of your consultancy class called Consultancy Processes and Tools. And it integrates this kind of as the capstone, and that's your last one. So this is what everybody follows, but actually, Jenny, what we didn't talk about also is the specializations, because we have 4 specializations to choose from, so that you can decide where to kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive, either on, if you want to create an entrepreneurial venture, or you want to become an internal, thank you, Jenny. If you want to become an internal entrepreneur, a corporate entrepreneur, as we call them, intrapreneur, corporate entrepreneur, this is really what you would want to choose. If you want to go into a deeper dive into finance, you could do that. I don't usually recommend that for people who haven't done finance or something similar as a background. It's very difficult to get into if you haven't done that yet. Or you have the luxury, which is actually about understanding a product, creating your product and adapting it for the market with that sustainability aspect. So the luxury sector is going towards a transformation towards luxury, responding to the client demands, but they have the flexibility to be able to answer the needs of their clientele. So it's a nice area to get into. And then, of course, we have the advanced business analytics, which is the newest one that we have recently added, which makes sense considering where we are. So we talked about, AI and data, learning about value creation, but we have that additional last session, which is another 30-week chunk, which is really about sustainability and ethics. Okay, we can create it, but should we? Or how could we do it differently? Because, AI or other digital transformations can happen. You can use data, but how should you use your data? So we know that there's a lot of possibilities, but asking the ethical question is important. And those are our 4 choices. Great.
Great. And there we go. A question. I was just assumed you were doing such a good job of explaining the program already. So they would like to know about extracurricular activities on the campus and also the schedule of the classes.
I think that is a very interwoven question, actually. Okay, which is the first question, actually. I'll address the second one first because we're talking about the schedule and the daily classes. So as I said, this is a 10-month program. And in the 10 months, you have 540 hours of face-to-face contact minimum, plus you have the CESIM simulation and you have the live business case. So there are things that you have to do that are not necessarily counted. And so you have a lot of time spent in focused on that and focused on group work and individual papers, pre-readings, things like that. So we have a huge amount of extracurricular activities, should you find the time, which many people do. We have 1 week called Altiglis. Altiglis is all about going skiing, actually. It's a week where it's a schools sponsored, so it's a collaboration of different schools who go out and they allow everyone to go up into the mountains and spend 1 week just skiing, basically. So when you talk about extracurricular activities, you can choose to do that, or if you don't ski, you can have the week off, which is amazing as well, to explore the area, to explore Europe, to go back home if you really wanted to. But that's an important week, and it is an extracurricular activity. We have a lot of associations, including cheerleading. I did not know about the cheerleading until this year, and I was an alumni here. So we have sports, we have different associations.
They had a rehearsal in the hall once. So.
Oh gosh, and they were at the gala. So this is the graduation ceremony. So they were there. So there are different associations. You also have, like I say, language classes, and we do when we do our corporate expedition or we are in Berlin, we do very interesting like team building, and we do like urban challenges. You can look at my LinkedIn and kind of look at some of my posts for some of the things that we did to understand that perhaps a little bit better, but lots of fun things. And of course, we do like a wine and cheese tasting. Like I say, we just did the farewell drinks, etc.
That's a topic we didn't get into, but but you do just spend a week in Berlin visiting companies and doing lots of, like you said, a lot of company visits. So
but if you want to know more on those, you can definitely just go to my LinkedIn or on Ginny's. You're going to find them there.
Chandra's happy to send you more info too about any of that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Really great experience.
Yeah. So very, very busy, but and intense, but once in a lifetime experience, I would say. So thank you, Ghanshyam. We did speak already. That's great. Yeah.
Well, if there are no further questions, I'm just going to share with you, of course, on the website where you can find more information. But we also have, we have a team of all over the world who are here to support you. And of course, Chandra and I are available as well. And our admissions staff is really friendly. Happy to answer any of your questions. But this is our international team who is in your region, and they'll be able to assist you with maybe more locally specific questions you might have, your visa applications, payments, things like that. You could email them, and they'll contact you right away. Super helpful. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of them or to us with your questions. And we hope to meet you in Grenoble in the fall, which is quite soon. So
yeah, I know that I personally know that I'll be seeing some of you. So that's great. So congratulations.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.